Welcome back. Just a little, but we're back now. Go ahead. You're making
Yes,
a point.
thank you. I was saying that the judiciary has a job to do. Adjudicate, rule on cases. Now, there's no cooperation that is required in that. If the government or the prosecutor brings in an ironclad case, you have credible witnesses, you have evidence that can be admissible in front of the court. Hey, what the court will do is look at those things and offer issue a judgment. So what is the cooperation there? I don't understand. So, I mean, you don't go into court and expect the judge to rule on your behalf because of what? Because you expect the judge to cooperate?
So for
I don't
you,
understand that.
You don't think that word cooperate should even come up
It
at any
shouldn't.
stage?
It shouldn't.
But what then do you think, what do they do with their impression or perception if they think, no, something really is wrong? Because we looked at the facts and the merits of these cases. It doesn't seem to be following the regular rule of law that we know. In short, if they think the judiciary is corrupt.
Well, there's a difference between the judiciary cooperating or expecting the judiciary to cooperate and the judiciary being corrupt. Okay, if you look at the judiciary and you think the judiciary is corrupt, then do something about that corruption. But don't base your cases on the fact that the judiciary is corrupt. It's not all judges that are corrupt, by the way. And when you talk about judicial corruption, I mean, you have to hold people accountable. You have to show examples. You have to, you know, you can't just use that blanket thing, judiciary corrupt, therefore. No. You present your case. Do due diligence in presenting your case. Prosecute your case. I was reading in the newspapers this morning where the representative of the EFCC, I think it was the secretary, was saying that, well, you know, our job is to investigate and charge people to court. No, it doesn't stop there. You have to prosecute, and you have to prosecute vigorously, presenting all the evidence, and in doing so, you have to think about the rights of the accused as well. So the court is an independent body. The judiciary stands back, weigh all the evidence.
Is there a disconnection there when you say to investigate? Because remember, the EFCC, they don't have so much lawyers. They usually get lawyers to come do some of those cases for them. Could it be that they, or the thinking of that person who spoke is that, well, we just do our part. So when we hand to the lawyer, we expect him to go win the case.
That is just taken out. It's an excuse, and I'll tell you why. If the EFCC is deficient in resources, say they don't have enough money to hire lawyers, let them go and get some more money. I mean, they seize a lot of money. They told us they seize a lot of assets. One of my own advocacy is that EFCC should be able to use part of those seized assets for its behalf in prosecuting cases. You cannot leave EFCC alone without giving the agency the tools to do this job. And part of it is hiring lawyers and getting competent lawyers to prosecute this case. If it's falling short in that regard, then the fight against corruption cannot be properly prosecuted.
Do you think that the fight has taken us to a point whereby the people are confident, even with the actions of the judiciary, recalling those judges back to
well,
what do you make of that situation?
I was there when I raised the issue about raiding the judges. I mean, I got a lot of flack from my friends after. They're watching now and they're going to talk about it. Like, oh, Muyiwa Sobo, you are supporting corruption because you were against raiding of judges. No, when you do that, every defense lawyer is sitting down back laughing and looking at you because you're not going to be able to prosecute those cases successfully. You're just throwing what is a beef to defense lawyers. When you conducted those raids outside of what is normal within the law, you cannot expect to win those cases. I mean, I think it was one of the government officials who came and said, well, we've been watching these people and we are going after them because of their lifestyle. Lifestyle is not it's not evidence. It's not proof. So that is why I said it, that those cases will not go forward. Those judges will be acquitted. Recalling them, I don't know. I mean, that depends on the Chief Justice. But you cannot fault him too, because once somebody is prosecuted and found innocent, then what is the reason of keeping him away from his job?
But isn't it a little tricky, because at that time, not a lot of people knew the kind of information that the authorities had to have warranted that raid. And many thought, well, for them to have carried out that raid, perhaps that was the final piece of the puzzle in that equation which they had carried out, only for one of the cases.
And we ask about that. We ask what they call it a sting operation. I don't think it was a sting operation. Sting operation would be, for instance, if somebody complained about having been approached to pay a bribe, and you set up that, you give the person marked notes and you put cameras and microphones all over the place. So you have ironclad, concrete evidence that this person is corrupt. But when you go into someone's home at 12 midnight, you kick down the door, you find some dollars lying around, and say, well, the business is just going to prosecute. Now, defense lawyers will tell you that it's going to be a cakewalk for them to defend such a case. One, you have excuses, you have explanations. The fact that I have dollars in my home does not mean I acquire them corruptly. And so on and so forth. So my point is, if we are going to fight corruption, we have to do it properly. Otherwise, it's like cutting off our nose.
Let's explore that part where they talk about justice being seen to have been done.
Yeah.
Now, when you interact with some members of the public, and you know how law practice is, where in many cases they say you have to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes.
You know, so, and then some members of the public tell you, or maybe even some government officials who know that, wait a minute, we have actually seen something against one or two persons, albeit a judge, but not being able to prove it beyond reasonable doubt does not necessarily mean that something wrong shouldn't have happened or didn't happen.
Well, you see, you can...
How do you deal with that kind of perception?
The perception and so on, conjectures are different from proving a case. You can look at someone and say, well, he is wearing a nice tie. He must have stolen it. That's your perception, and that cannot be presented against anyone in court to prove that you actually have stolen the tie. So if the EFCC or the anti-corruption agencies will do a good job, put perception aside, you do your job and you do it very well, that will now, kind of dictate the perception, public perception about what, even if you try and you fail, the public will still have seen that, oh, gee, you've tried, and proving a case beyond reasonable doubt. If you can't do that, it means the person is innocent. It's just as simple as that. You have to prove it, but a judge will not give you a case if you don't prove it beyond reasonable doubt, because at that point, the judge may be committing an innocent person to prison.
Let's extend this perception situation to the Ikoyi 13 billion that has been forfeited to the government. Do you see a moral justification, for instance, if we're talking of perception, that we're expecting a report, a presidential report, the report didn't come through, and then you have the 13 billion being forfeited to the government? What kind of perception does this give to the fight against corruption?
Very bad, and I'll tell you why. We are now focusing on forfeiture of that money. Someone was responsible for putting that money there. If we knew the person, as investigation should reveal, we should first prosecute. I'm talking about prosecution because it's so important. What will discourage corruption is punishment, adequate punishment. You throw people into jail. If I stole money and you take that money back, it wasn't my money in the first place. I have lost nothing. I have suffered nothing. In fact, people will steal money hoping, well, they're going to get it back, take it back from me, I can just walk away. Now, forfeiture, you have forfeited this money permanently. There's a presidential or vice presidential committee that's sitting on it. We don't have that report yet. Okay? I'll have waited for that report to come out first before we do the forfeiture. Because in that report, we may have contents that will allow us or help us to prosecute. My thing is, prosecute first. Let's look at this person who was bold enough to keep that amount of dollar in an apartment. How did that money get there? From where did that money come? I mean, don't tell me it's so easy to move $43 million from the central bank without somebody knowing about it or some bank knowing about it. So you have so many people, so many participants that are just walking away now. And that is why the public perception will be bad. It's not a good image at all that we're just forfeiting and nobody is going to jail for this $43 million.
Now that